My name is Sue Harrison. I'm 62 years old, and I built a multi-million-dollar tech company while raising my son Derek, alone after his father abandoned us. For 30 years, I poured everything into giving Derek the best life possible. When he got engaged to Allison, I was thrilled, despite some reservations about her attitude toward me. I never imagined I'd end up standing alone at an empty restaurant on what should have been his wedding day, hearing those casual words, "Oh, the wedding was yesterday. I think you missed it." I'd love to know where you're watching from today. If you've ever had family betray your trust, hit that like button and subscribe to hear what happened when I tore up that $2 million check right while he was on the phone. I wasn't born into wealth. Far from it. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the daughter of a high school teacher and a nurse. My parents taught me the value of hard work and education, scraping together enough to send me to a state college where I studied computer science in the early 1980s. I was one of just 6 women in my program and the only one who graduated. After college, I moved to California with nothing but a used Honda Civic and enough money for 2 months' rent. Silicon Valley was still in its infancy, dominated by men who rarely took women seriously. I landed a job at a software company working 80-hour weeks, learning everything I could and saving every penny possible. I met Richard, Derek's father, at a company party. He was charming, ambitious, and seemed to respect my intelligence, a rarity at that time. Our whirlwind romance led to marriage within a year, and I became pregnant with Derek shortly after. Initially, we were happy. Richard had his own consulting business, and we shared dreams of building something significant together. Everything changed when Derek was born. Richard seemed overwhelmed by the responsibility of parenthood. He worked later, came home less, and grew increasingly distant. By the time Derek turned 4, Richard's business was failing, and our marriage had deteriorated beyond repair. I'll never forget the morning I woke to find Richard gone, along with our joint savings account. The note he left simply said, "I can't do this anymore." No goodbye to his son, no promise to stay in touch. Just gone. With a 4-year-old depending on me and nearly no money left, I had 2 choices: collapse or reinvent ourselves. I chose the latter. I mortgaged the small home we'd bought, sold my wedding ring, and launched my own tech company focusing on database security solutions, an underserved niche at the time. Those early years were brutally difficult. I would work from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m., pick up Derek from preschool, spend quality time with him until bedtime, then work again from 8 p.m. until midnight. I converted our garage into an office so I could be home while building the business. Sometimes we ate macaroni and cheese for a week straight because it was all we could afford. Despite the challenges, Derek and I formed an unbreakable bond. Without a father in the picture, we became each other's world. I taught him about business from an early age, not because I wanted to push him in that direction, but because it was what I knew. By age 7, he was helping me stuff envelopes for client mailings. By 10, he understood profit margins and return on investment better than most adults. The company's secure-based systems grew steadily throughout Derek's childhood. By the time he entered high school, we had 20 employees and had moved to proper offices. When he turned 16, I was finally able to buy him a car. Not a fancy one, but reliable. I'll never forget how he hugged me that day saying, "We made it, Mom. You made it happen." Those words meant everything to me because we truly had built our success together. His support and understanding during those lean years had been just as important as my hard work. When Derek graduated high school and headed to college, a prestigious private university I could finally afford, Securebase had grown to over 100 employees with annual revenue exceeding $20 million. I had become one of the few female CEOs in Silicon Valley, occasionally featured in business magazines that highlighted women breaking the glass ceiling. Derek thrived in college, majoring in business administration with a focus on entrepreneurship. He would call me regularly with ideas and questions, continuing our Sunday tradition of business brunches whenever he came home. He'd grown into a thoughtful, ambitious young man with his father's charisma, but thankfully, none of his unreliability. After Derek graduated from business school, I made the decision to sell Securebase. The technology landscape was changing, and a larger company offered $50 million. After taxes and paying out my investors and employees, I walked away with just under $30 million, financial security beyond anything I could have imagined during those struggles as a single mother. I established myself as an angel investor, focusing primarily on women-led startups. I wanted to provide the kind of support and mentorship I wished I'd had. Meanwhile, Derek launched his own marketing consultancy, building it from scratch, just as I had done. I offered advice, but never interference. When he occasionally needed capital for expansion, I provided it as a proper business investment with fair terms. I wanted him to succeed on his own merits while having the support I never had. Throughout his 20s, Derek dated casually, but never seemed to find anyone special. He was focused on his business, which grew impressively under his leadership. By 30, he had 15 employees and a solid client base. I was immensely proud of the man he had become, hardworking, ethical, and determined to create his own success. I had always planned to leave the majority of my wealth to Derek eventually, but I also wanted to establish a foundation supporting entrepreneurship for single parents. As my net worth grew through smart investments, I adjusted my estate plan accordingly. I would ensure Derek's financial security while also creating a meaningful legacy beyond just personal wealth. When Derek turned 32, I decided to set aside $2 million specifically for his future, whether for business expansion, a home purchase, or eventually for his own children's education. I wanted it to be a significant gift that would help him build whatever future he envisioned. I just needed the right occasion to present it. Little did I know that occasion would come sooner than expected and unfold in ways I could never have anticipated. Derek met Allison at a charity fundraiser for young entrepreneurs. I wasn't there that night. I was speaking at a women's leadership conference in Chicago, but he called me immediately after. "Mom, I met someone incredible," he said, his voice animated in a way I hadn't heard before. "Her name is Allison. She manages the downtown location of Luxe Boutique. She's smart, beautiful, and gets exactly what I'm trying to build with my company." Over the next several weeks, Derek mentioned Allison constantly. They were spending nearly every evening together, and for the first time, he was missing our Sunday brunches. I was happy for him, but admittedly curious about the woman who had so quickly captured his attention. A month into their relationship, Derek arranged dinner at La Maison, an upscale French restaurant I had been wanting to try. "I want my two favorite women to meet," he said, his excitement palpable. Allison was undeniably stunning, tall and slender with immaculate blonde hair and designer clothes that highlighted her fashion industry background. She greeted me with a practiced smile and air kisses that never quite connected with my cheeks. "Derek has told me so much about you, Susan," she said, despite having been told multiple times my name was Sue. "All good things, I hope," I responded with a genuine smile, willing to overlook the name error. "Of course. He says you were quite successful before you retired." The phrasing struck me as odd. I hadn't retired, but had transitioned to investing and mentoring. It was the first of many subtle ways Allison would diminish my ongoing accomplishments. Throughout dinner, Allison spoke primarily about luxury brands, celebrity clients, and the networking events she attended. When I asked about her family or background, she deflected with practiced ease. She was charming to Derek, touching his arm constantly. But I noticed her eyes constantly scanning the restaurant, as if looking for someone more important to speak with. When the check arrived, Derek reached for it, but I insisted on paying. "My treat for our first dinner together," I said warmly. "That's so sweet," Allison replied. "Though I'm sure Derek makes enough to cover it now, don't you, honey? No need for Mom to still pick up the tab." It was a small comment, but it carried an unmistakable message. She saw my financial support, even for a single dinner, as somehow emasculating to my son. Over the following months, Derek's behavior began to change subtly. He canceled 3 Sunday brunches in a row, When he did visit, he was constantly checking his phone, responding to Allison's texts. He began referencing expensive restaurants they visited, weekend trips to wine country, and the luxury condo Allison thought he should buy, instead of his modest but comfortable home. I tried connecting with Allison directly, inviting her for lunch or shopping, hoping to build a relationship independent of Derek. She would accept, but then cancel last minute or arrive late and leave early. During these brief encounters, she would make comments that left me unsettled. "Derek's office is so basic," she mentioned during one lunch. "I keep telling him successful people need to look successful. First impressions matter in marketing. His business is doing very well with its current approach," I defended gently. "Oh, I know you're proud of him," she said with a tight smile. "But he could be doing so much more with the right connections. My clients know everyone who matters." 6 months into their relationship, Derek announced they were moving in together, into a new luxury apartment that cost nearly triple his current rent. When I expressed concern about the expense, he dismissed it with uncharacteristic irritation. "I can afford it, Mom. I'm not a kid anymore." 2 weeks later, he called with bigger news: they were engaged. Allison had picked out a ring that cost more than his car. "We're thinking about a wedding at the Grand Resort," he said. "Allison says it's the only venue worth considering." The Grand Resort was the most expensive wedding venue in our area, typically booked by celebrities and tech billionaires. "That's ambitious," I replied carefully. "Those venues book up years in advance." "Allison's already handling it. Her friend is the events manager." When I finally saw the ring on Allison's finger at their engagement party, I understood Derek's recent request for a business loan. The 4-carat diamond in a platinum setting was breathtaking, and well beyond what he could afford on his company's current profits. The engagement party itself was revealing. Held at an exclusive rooftop bar, it featured premium champagne, gourmet hors d'oeuvres, and a professional photographer. Allison's parents, both tall, blonde, and expensively dressed, greeted guests like minor royalty. They spoke warmly about Allison finding a man with proper ambition, but barely acknowledged me despite Derek's attempts at introduction. I was seated at a side table with distant acquaintances, while Allison's family occupied the central table with Derek. Throughout the evening, I watched my son morph into someone I barely recognized, laughing too loudly at her father's jokes, name-dropping clients, and discussing plans for expanding his business into luxury branding, something he'd never mentioned to me. After the party, I called my best friend Barbara. We'd been confidants since our early days in tech, and she was one of the few people who truly knew both Derek and me. "I'm worried about him, Barb," I confessed. "This relationship is moving incredibly fast, and Allison seems to have very specific expectations about lifestyle that Derek can't sustain without serious financial strain." "Have you talked to him about it?" Barbara asked. "I've tried. He gets defensive immediately, says I don't understand what it takes to move in certain circles. That's not even how he talks." "And the wedding, are you involved in planning?" "Theoretically." Allison asked if I'd like to contribute financially, which I offered to do. But every suggestion I make gets shut down immediately. Despite my concerns, I wanted to support Derek's happiness. If Allison was his choice, I would try my hardest to welcome her into our family. I decided to prepare the $2 million gift I'd been setting aside, planning to present it at the wedding as a start to their new life together. Perhaps financial security would ease whatever insecurities were driving Allison's status-seeking behavior. In retrospect, I was naive to think money would solve what was fundamentally a character issue. But mothers often see what we hope to see rather than what's actually before us. The months leading up to the wedding were increasingly stressful. After offering to pay for a significant portion of the celebration, I expected some involvement in the planning process. Instead, I found myself systematically excluded from every decision. When I suggested a beautiful historic venue that had personal significance to our family, Allison dismissed it as too outdated. When I mentioned including a traditional mother-son dance, she informed me that modern weddings are moving beyond those cliches. When I asked about family photos I wanted to display at the reception showing Derek growing up, she said they wouldn't match the aesthetic concept. Every suggestion was rejected, every family tradition discarded. Derek, caught between us, increasingly took Allison's side. "Mom, it's their vision. We should respect that," became his standard response. The planning for the rehearsal dinner, traditionally the responsibility of the groom's family, was particularly painful. I had reserved a private room at Derek's favorite steakhouse where we'd celebrated every major milestone in his life. 2 weeks before the wedding, Allison called to inform me they had changed the venue to an exclusive sushi restaurant her parents preferred. "But I've already paid the deposit," I protested. "And Derek loves Sullivan's." "We've handled it," she replied dismissively. "The deposit has been transferred. Dad knows the owner at Koi and got us the private room with their special omakase menu. Much more elegant." I swallowed my hurt. "I see. Will I at least be giving a toast I've been working on something special?" "We're keeping speeches minimal, just the best man and maid of honor. Makes for a cleaner program." Despite these slights, I focused on preparing my gift. I met with my financial advisor to arrange the transfer of $2 million into an account for Derek. We discussed the tax implications and created the paperwork that would accompany the check. "This is incredibly generous, Sue," my advisor commented. "Will this be part of his inheritance or in addition to it?" "In addition," I confirmed. "I want him to have this now when they're starting their life together. Whether it's for a home investments or eventually for their children's education." I spent hours composing a heartfelt letter to accompany the check expressing my pride in the man Derek had become and my hopes for his future happiness. I wrote about the legacy of hard work and integrity I hoped he would continue regardless of financial circumstances. The wedding invitation arrived 6 weeks before the event, an elaborate affair with multiple inserts and gold foil detailing. I immediately noticed something odd. The date listed was Sunday, June 12th. Derek had previously mentioned Saturday, June 11th multiple times. I called him immediately. "Derek, the invitation says Sunday the 12th. I thought you were getting married on Saturday." "Let me check," he said, putting me on hold briefly. "No, Mom, it's definitely Saturday the 11th at 7 p.m., the Grand Resort Garden Terrace. They must have made a printing error on some invitations." "Should I come to the rehearsal on Friday then?" "Actually, we're keeping the rehearsals super small, just the wedding party. But I'll see you Saturday, okay?" I spent the next week shopping for the perfect mother-of-the-groom dress, eventually selecting an elegant navy blue gown with subtle beading. I had my hair colored, scheduled a professional makeup session, and even treated myself to new jewelry for the occasion. The night before the wedding, I expected at least a text from Derek. When none came, I assumed he was busy with last-minute preparations, and the rehearsal dinner I hadn't been invited to attend. I went to bed early, setting my alarm for enough time to prepare properly for the most important day in my son's life. Saturday morning, I woke with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. My hair and makeup appointments went perfectly, and I returned home to carefully dress for the evening ceremony. The check and letter were safely tucked into a small crystal-embellished clutch that matched my shoes. I arrived at the Grand Resort at 6:30 p.m., wanting to be early to wish Derek well before the ceremony. As I pulled into the circular drive, I was struck by how empty the parking area seemed. No valets rushed forward to take my keys. No other guests were arriving in formal attire. With growing uneasiness, I entered the lobby and asked the concierge about the Harrison Wells wedding. He checked his tablet and frowned. "I'm sorry, ma'am, we don't have a wedding scheduled under those names today." "There must be some mistake. It's my son's wedding, Derek Harrison and Allison Wells, the Garden Terrace at 7 o'clock. He checked again. "We did have a Harrison Wells wedding, but it was yesterday, Friday, June 10th. My heart dropped into my stomach. That's impossible. The invitation said Sunday the 12th, but my son confirmed Saturday the 11th. Today. The concierge looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry, but there's no event scheduled in any of our spaces under those names tonight. The garden terrace is being prepared for a corporate event tomorrow. I thanked him and walked on shaking legs to a quiet corner of the lobby. I called Derek's phone. No answer. I texted, "I'm at the venue. Where is everyone?" No response. I called again and again. On the fourth attempt, he finally answered. "Mom, what's up?" The casual tone in his voice sent a chill through me. "I'm at the Grand Resort for your wedding. There's no one here. The concierge says it was yesterday." There was a pause then. "Oh, the wedding was yesterday. I think you missed it." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "What do you mean I missed it? The invitation said Sunday. When I called to check, you said Saturday. Today is Saturday." "There must have been some confusion," he said, his voice oddly flat. "We sent out some invitations with different dates because the venue had limited capacity. Didn't Allison explain that to you?" In that moment, with those carefully constructed words, I knew. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. They had intentionally given me the wrong date to ensure I wouldn't be there. "No," I said quietly. "No one explained anything to me." I heard Allison's voice in the background, then Derek saying something about being on the phone with me. She came on the line. "Sue, these mix-ups happen with big weddings. We had to make some tough decisions about the guest list. Some people got invites to the ceremony, others to the reception only. It's nothing personal." But it was personal. It was entirely, cruelly personal. "I see," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "Well, I hope you both enjoyed your special day." "We did," Allison replied with audible satisfaction. "It was perfect. Everyone who matters was there." Everyone who matters. The words echoed in my head as I realized what my son had allowed to happen. After 30 years of sacrifice, love, and support, I had been deliberately excluded from one of the most important days of his life. "Derek," I said, asking for my son to take the phone back. "I need to tell you something." "Yeah, Mom?" He sounded distracted, almost bored. "I came today with a wedding gift for you both. A check for $2 million and a letter telling you how proud I am of the man you've become." His tone changed instantly. "Really? Wow, Mom, that's incredible. We can meet you tomorrow to get that." "No need," I said calmly. "I'm looking at it right now." I pulled out the check, holding it so the phone's camera could capture what I was doing. "Mom, what are you doing?" "I'm tearing up this check, Derek, right now." And I did. I tore it into tiny pieces, letting them fall to the marble floor of the hotel lobby. "Mom, stop! Are you insane? That's $2 million. Yes, it was. Money I earned working 80-hour weeks while raising you alone. Money I saved for your future, believing you had grown into a man of integrity and compassion." I heard Allison demanding to know what was happening. Derek's voice grew frantic as he explained. She grabbed the phone. "You spiteful bitch," she hissed. "You can't do that." "I just did," I replied, surprising myself with my calm. "Congratulations on your wedding, Allison. I hope whatever you gained by excluding me was worth $2 million. I ended the call and sat alone in the grand lobby, surrounded by luxury and the scattered pieces of a check that represented decades of hard work. A check that until 5 minutes ago I had been so happy to give. I drove home in a daze, the beautiful dress I'd carefully selected now feeling like a costume from a play where I'd been cast in a role no one wanted. The house was dark when I arrived. I hadn't left lights on, expecting to return late from a joyful wedding celebration. Inside, I mechanically removed my carefully applied makeup, hung up the unworn dress, and placed the empty clutch on my dresser. Then I sat on the edge of my bed, still not fully processing what had happened. My phone began ringing almost immediately. Derek calling, then texting, then calling again. I silenced it, needing space to think. The next morning brought more calls. not just from Derek and Allison, but from Derek's friend Tyler, then from Allison's mother. I let them all go to voicemail. Finally, I listened to the messages. Derek's ranged from angry, "How could you do something so crazy?" to manipulative, "I can't believe you'd punish me this way," to pleading, "Mom, please, we really need that money." Allison was less nuanced. "You've ruined everything. Derek says you can write another check. Call us immediately." Her mother's message was particularly revealing. "Sue, this childish tantrum is embarrassing. Adults don't behave this way when they don't get their way. The wedding was lovely without you, and now you're punishing the children over a simple date confusion." But Tyler's message was different. "Sue, it's Tyler. I feel like you should know the truth. The date thing wasn't a mistake. Allison told several people at the reception that she'd made sure you got the wrong date because she didn't want you interfering with her perfect day. She was laughing about it." Derek didn't contradict her. "I'm sorry, this isn't right." I sat with this confirmation of what I'd already suspected, feeling oddly numb. Then I called Barbara. "They did what?" she exclaimed when I explained. "And you tore up the check, good for you." "I don't know if it was good," I admitted. "Part of me already regrets it. That was an impulsive reaction, and I've never been impulsive with money." "It wasn't about money," Barbara said firmly. "It was about respect. They showed you none, and you responded appropriately." "But $2 million, Barb. That's a significant amount to destroy in a moment of anger." "The money can be replaced. The trust they broke cannot." Over the next few days, I discovered through social media that the wedding had indeed been beautiful. Photos showed Derek and Allison beaming, surrounded by her large family and their friends. Many of my friends and business associates had been invited. People who knew me, who must have wondered about my absence but apparently never questioned it directly. I learned from Derek's college roommate that Allison had told guests I was too ill to attend, but that I sent my blessings. A complete fabrication. Barbara arrived that weekend with an overnight bag. "I'm staying for a few days," she announced. "No arguments." With Barbara's support, I began working through the complex emotions: betrayal, grief, anger, and yes, guilt. Had I somehow failed as a mother? Had my focus on business success somehow created this entitled, callous adult who could treat his only parent with such disregard? I started seeing Dr. Levine, a therapist specializing in family estrangement. In our sessions, I examined the patterns in my relationship with Derek: my tendency to solve problems with money, his growing expectation of financial support, the subtle shift from appreciation to entitlement. "Financial generosity isn't wrong," Dr. Levine assured me, "but it can create complicated dynamics, especially when a child begins seeing a parent primarily as a resource rather than a complete person with their own needs." Meanwhile, Derek's communications evolved from anger to calculated appeals. "Mom, we've put deposits on a house based on your promise of financial support." There had been no promise. "Allison's having anxiety attacks because of the financial uncertainty." Convenient timing. "After all you've done for me, I can't believe you'd withhold support now when I need it most." The emotional manipulation was becoming transparent. With Dr. Levine's guidance, I crafted a response after 2 weeks of silence. "Derek, I love you and always will. What happened at your wedding deeply hurt me and revealed serious issues in our relationship. I'm open to rebuilding our connection based on mutual respect, but that will take time and effort from both of us. I will not be providing the financial gift under these circumstances. I hope we can talk when you're ready to address the real issues between us." His reply was immediate and telling. "So, you're holding your money hostage unless I apologize for a miscommunication that wasn't even my fault? That's really unfair, Mom." No mention of wanting to rebuild our relationship. No acknowledgement of my hurt. Just focus on the money. I didn't respond. Instead, I began reassessing my life and priorities. For 3 decades, being Derek's mother had been my primary identity, even as I built my business. Now I needed to rediscover who Sue Harrison was beyond that role. I reconnected with female entrepreneurs I'd mentored, accepting invitations I'd previously declined to keep Sundays open for Derek. I joined the board of a tech education nonprofit focusing on single parents. I began considering how to restructure my estate plan, researching foundations that aligned with my values. Through this process, I found strength in my business community. Women who had faced their own challenges understood betrayal and resilience in ways my suburban friends couldn't. They didn't judge my decision to tear up the check or offer platitudes about family always working things out. They recognized that sometimes the hardest business decision is knowing when to cut your losses, even when that business is the business of family. 3 months passed without real contact from Derek beyond occasional texts attempting to negotiate financial support without addressing the underlying issues. I remained firm in my boundaries, though the estrangement hurt more than I let anyone see. Then, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, my doorbell rang. Derek stood on my porch, soaking wet, looking more disheveled than I'd seen him since his college days. No luxury car in the driveway. He appeared to have walked or taken public transportation. "Can I come in?" he asked, his voice rough. I hesitated, then stepped aside. He entered the home he'd grown up in, but glanced around as if seeing it for the first time. I noticed he looked thinner with dark circles under his eyes. "Would you like some coffee?" I offered, maintaining a careful distance. "Please." We moved to the kitchen where he sat at the breakfast bar while I prepared coffee. The same routine we'd had during his high school and college years when he would tell me about his day. "I need the money, Mom," he said abruptly as I placed a mug before him. "The $2 million. I need it now." I studied my son's face, the face I'd memorized from his first moments of life. "That's how you want to start this conversation, not with an explanation or apology. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry you got the wrong invitation? Fine, I'm sorry." "Derek, we both know it wasn't a mistake. Tyler told me Allison was bragging about deliberately excluding me." He flinched. "Tyler should mind his own business." "It is his business when his friend participates in something so cruel. The question is, why? Why would you allow your mother to be treated this way?" Derek stared into his coffee. It was easier to go along with what Allison wanted. Easier than standing up for the woman who raised you alone, who worked multiple jobs to give you opportunities, who supported every dream you've ever had. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," he burst out. "Allison has expectations. Her family has expectations. The business has to project a certain image. And I don't fit that image," I concluded quietly. "Not the way you are, no. Allison thinks you're too ordinary, not sophisticated enough for the circles we need to move in." The honesty was both stunning and oddly refreshing after months of manipulation and lies. "I see, and you agree with her assessment." He had the grace to look ashamed. "I don't know anymore, Mom. Everything's falling apart. That's why I need the money. We're in serious financial trouble." "What kind of trouble?" The story spilled out. They'd purchased a house far beyond their means, taking out a second mortgage based on the assumption of my wedding gift. Allison had quit her job, insisting she needed to focus on building their social profile. Derek's business was struggling because he'd shifted focus from his established clients to pursue luxury brands that hadn't materialized. Credit card debt had spiraled as Allison insisted on maintaining appearances. "So, you're not here because you miss your mother or regret your actions. You're here because you need a financial bailout." "It's not like that," he protested weakly. "I do miss you. But yes, we need help." I took a deep breath. "Derek, I raised you to take responsibility for your choices. The consequences you're facing now are the direct result of decisions you and Allison made. including the decision to deliberately exclude me from your wedding and then lie about it. So you're punishing me by withholding the money. No, I'm declining to reward behavior that was cruel and dishonest. There's a difference. What do you want from me? He demanded, frustration evident. I want a relationship with my son based on mutual respect and love, not financial transactions. I want acknowledgement of the hurt you've caused and a genuine desire to rebuild trust. What I don't want is to be valued only for my checkbook. And if I can't give you what you want, if I just need the money? The question broke my heart, but I kept my voice steady. Then you'll need to find it elsewhere. I won't enable the person you're becoming, someone who would discard his mother for social advancement and then return only when he needs financial rescue. You're choosing money over your own son, he accused. No, Derek, you are. He left in anger, slamming the door like the teenager he'd once been. I sat in my kitchen, the house echoing with his absence, and finally allowed myself to truly grieve. Not just for missing his wedding, but for the son I thought I had raised. The boy who once made me Mother's Day cards, promising to always take care of me, who cried when I was sick, who beamed with pride when introducing me to his college friends. That evening, I wrote Derek a long letter. I detailed my love for him from the moment of his birth. I acknowledged my own mistakes, perhaps protecting him too much from financial hardship, solving problems with money, rather than letting him develop resilience. I expressed my willingness to rebuild our relationship, but reiterated that it couldn't be based on financial support. I mailed the letter, knowing he might never respond. Then I called my financial advisor and my lawyer. It was time to formalize the changes to my estate plan that had been forming in my mind. 2 days later, I received an unexpected visitor, Max, Derek's best friend from childhood through high school. Unlike many of Derek's friends who had drifted away after he began dating Allison, Max had maintained occasional contact with me, sending holiday cards and stopping by when he was in town. I heard what happened, he said after I invited him in. Derek's been drinking a lot, talking about how you've abandoned him when he needs you most. That's not surprising, I said sadly. What he's not saying is how Allison has systematically isolated him from everyone who cares about him. Me, his college buddies, you. She convinced him that his old life wasn't good enough, that he needed to reinvent himself to be worthy of her world. Max shared stories that made my heart ache. Allison belittling Derek's achievements, criticizing his friends, monitoring his communications, and gradually reshaping his perceptions until he saw his past through her distorted lens. Classic emotional manipulation, Max said. He worked as a counselor and recognized the patterns. She targeted a successful man with a strong, supportive mother, then set about removing the mother from the equation to gain complete influence. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because Derek's going to crash hard, and when he does, he'll need you. Not your money, you. The mom who taught him his real worth before Allison convinced him it was measured in designer labels and social connections. Max's words gave me the clarity and determination I needed. I would not enable Derek's current path, but I would ensure I was still standing when he was ready to find his way back to himself. The next day, I filed the paperwork to establish the Single Parent Entrepreneur Foundation, transferring a significant portion of my assets to fund scholarships, mentorship programs, and small business grants for single parents. The $2 million that would have gone to Derek now formed the initial endowment. It felt right, turning personal pain into purpose, creating opportunity from loss. I couldn't save my son from his choices, but I could help others facing the challenges I once had, without the advantages I'd eventually gained. When Derek learned about the foundation through a business newsletter, he left a scathing voicemail. So you'll give money to strangers, but not your own son. That's cold, Mom. Really cold. He couldn't yet see that in withholding financial rescue, I was offering something far more valuable, the chance to rediscover his own strength and values without the distorting influence of easy money or Allison's manipulation. All I could do was hope that someday he would understand. 1 year after tearing up that check in the Grand Resort's lobby, my life had transformed in ways I never anticipated. The Single Parent Entrepreneur Foundation was flourishing, having already provided grants to 15 single parents, starting businesses and scholarships to 25 children. I was more engaged with my community than I'd been in decades, finding purpose in supporting others who reminded me of my younger self. On a personal level, I had developed new friendships through my foundation work and rekindled old ones that had faded during Derek's relationship with Allison. Barbara and I traveled to Italy, something we'd talked about for years, but I'd always postponed, thinking I should save such experiences to share with Derek and his future family. I had even begun dating, cautiously at first, then with growing enthusiasm, a retired economics professor named James who valued me for my mind and heart, not my financial success. After decades of putting romance aside to focus on business and motherhood, I was discovering the joy of being appreciated simply for being myself. Then, one ordinary Tuesday, an email appeared in my inbox with the subject line, "I understand now." It was from Derek. The message was brief. "Mom, I owe you the most profound apology. Could we meet for coffee? No money talk, I promise. Just your son wanting to reconnect with his mother." We arranged to meet at a small cafe halfway between our homes. Not one of the upscale establishments Allison preferred, but a modest place known for good coffee and quiet corners. Derek arrived before me. When I entered, I immediately noticed changes. He'd lost the designer clothes and carefully styled hair that had become his uniform during his time with Allison. He looked more like himself, though, with new lines of experience etched around his eyes. "Mom," he said, standing awkwardly as I approached. We shared an uncertain hug before sitting down. "You look well," I offered, unsure how to begin. "I'm getting there," he replied. "It's been a difficult year." Over the next hour, Derek shared his journey. The marriage had unraveled completely about 6 months after our confrontation. The financial pressures had been the breaking point, but the deeper issues were Allison's controlling behavior and the values disconnect that became impossible to ignore once the glamour faded. "I lost everything, Mom," he admitted. "The house, most of my clients, my savings. Had to declare bankruptcy. It was the lowest point of my life." "I'm sorry you went through that," I said sincerely. "Don't be. It was the wake-up call I needed." He looked directly at me. "I've been in therapy twice a week, working through how I let Allison isolate me, how I betrayed the person who has always been in my corner." What that says about me. "And what have you learned?" I asked gently. "That I lost myself trying to become someone Allison deemed worthy. That I valued external validation over authentic connection. That I hurt the one person who loved me unconditionally because I couldn't stand up to someone who loved me only conditionally." Tears filled my eyes at his self-awareness. "That's profound insight, Derek." "It came at a high price." He hesitated. "Mom, about the money." I tensed, but he continued quickly. "I need to say this. You were right to tear up that check. Completely right. If you'd given me that money, it would have prolonged a toxic situation and delayed the hard lessons I needed to learn. Such as that I'm not entitled to your wealth just because I'm your son. That real success comes from building something meaningful, not from appearances. That true love doesn't require erasing your past or abandoning the people who've supported you." I reached across the table to squeeze his hand. "Those are expensive lessons indeed." "I'm starting over," he continued. "I found a small office space, I'm rebuilding my marketing business from scratch, focusing on small businesses and nonprofits this time. I'm living in a studio apartment, driving a used car. And you know what, I'm actually happier? Because it's authentic, I suggested. Exactly. He took a deep breath. I don't expect you to trust me immediately, or maybe ever fully again. I just want a chance to rebuild our relationship. No financial expectations. Just mother and son. We agreed to take small steps, a weekly phone call, occasional dinners. I made it clear that trust would need to be rebuilt gradually, and he accepted that with a maturity I hadn't seen in him before. Over the following months, our relationship slowly strengthened. Derek began volunteering with my foundation, offering marketing guidance to the entrepreneurs we supported. He reconnected with old friends who had been sidelined during his relationship with Allison. He even started dating again, a kindergarten teacher with a warm smile and no designer clothes. 6 months after our cafe meeting, Derek invited me to see his new office. It was modest but functional, with a small team of 3 employees focusing on helping small businesses develop effective marketing strategies. On the wall hung a framed quote, "Success is measured by impact, not income." "You taught me that," he said, noticing me reading it. "I just forgot for a while." As for the $2 million I had torn up that day, I never regretted the decision. Money can create opportunity, but it can also shield people from the consequences of their choices and the growth that comes from facing them. Derek's business is growing steadily now, not with flashy luxury clients, but with solid local businesses that value his expertise and integrity. He's paying off his debts systematically. He recently mentioned he's saving for a down payment on a small house, not a mansion, just a comfortable home he can actually afford. I haven't offered financial assistance, and remarkably, he hasn't asked. The foundation of our rebuilt relationship isn't money. It's respect, honesty, and the hard-earned wisdom that comes only through difficult experience. Sometimes, the most valuable gift we can give those we love isn't financial security, but the space to discover their own strength and values. And sometimes, tearing up a check worth millions can be worth every penny if it leads to something truly priceless, authentic connection based on who we are, not what we can provide. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family over money issues? How did you handle it, and did it change your relationship? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories about family money and the complicated space where they intersect. And if you know someone struggling with similar issues, please share this video. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these difficult situations makes all the difference. Thank you for being part of this community where we can share our truths and find strength in each other's experiences.